It's me again, your friend Kavya. Welcome back to the future. I had sent you back on an important mission to reveal and take action against an invisible and deadly enemy, which is too much carbon. Let's take a look at the kind of future that has manifested through the century based on your choices and actions. You chose to both adapt to climate impacts while taking the challenge to mitigate by reducing your community's carbon footprint. Delta redefined itself as the Venice of the West, and many of its original neighborhoods still thrive after a gradual rebuild. Your leadership in reducing carbon emissions have prevented Delta and the rest of the world from passing a global warming tipping point of 2 degrees Celsius. Boundary Bay is now built using renewable energy such as tidal and wind energy. Due to global mitigation efforts, the displacement of coastal climate refugees around the world was moderate, and immigrants that arrived in Delta were critical in transforming its flooded agriculture land reserves into aquaculture production. Dredging provided some extra room for the Fraser River during spring flooding, and this material was used to build protective beaches and islands for floating home communities in the Bay Area. Floating buildings are resilient to periodic inundation and rising seas. The Bay Area, as it is now referred, is an exclusive part of Delta, and over the decades, this design has prevented storm damage, property losses, insurance claims, and civil lawsuits. Across BC, other cities followed Delta's example and implemented similar alternative approaches to increase climate resilience. Tilbury reinvented itself as a clean energy manufacturer and distributor. The industrial district broadened its activities to include liquid and solid biofuels and eventually installed the first industrial-scale algae biofuel plant in North America. Economically viable processes for refining cellulosic ethanol were developed, and BC Energy is now exported to markets in Asia via a fleet of hybrid barges pulled by solar wind sails. Urban vertical agricultural systems now tower along the Fraser River. Demand for food continues to rise, while arable land becomes increasingly scarce. At first, there were traffic problems because commuters were reluctant to change their driving habits. But now, North Delta is connected by train to its nearest neighbor, the metropolis of Surrey, which has grown into the largest population and business center in the region. This has transformed North Delta from a suburban community to a neighboring town center, and early urban agriculture efforts mean it is now a regular part of our urban culture. Population growth being limited in the floodplain, and some people rejecting the hustle and bustle of North Delta, Ladner became home to those who cherished a quiet heritage neighborhood. Remaining residents were unwilling to raise a 5-meter diking system, so they simply raised up their homes instead, creating blocks of raised dwellings separated by canals and open water. Even though it was expensive, homeowners built duplex and triplex mansions to share the cost of architectural retrofits. Delta is considered to be a very desirable place to live, with diverse people, jobs, and environments. By growing a low-carbon economy and adapting strategically to find co-benefits, Delta avoided the dystopic 2090 that we first started this adventure in. Pretty amazing, this alternative 2090 that you were able to effect. Our climate stabilized by 2050, we transformed, we made trade-offs, and we have new challenges. We have a future Delta.